Hello, it's Treasure Joe, and there is a lot going on here. I think the biggest, most obvious thing staring us right in the face right now with this update, 2.2.4, are these ACBs. Yes, we now have the ability to really do work with these things. So for example, I have a NOT gate, which you can tell because I have not in and not out in the names. By the way, you can set names. In addition, there are now priorities. So this one's priority 1, this one's priority 0, this is priority -1. If I enable this NOT is going to, NOT in is going to be on, and that's telling this one to turn off. And since this is priority -1 to be turned on, it's disabled now. And I happen to have that hooked up to this T flip-flop which I made. Yes, you can make T flip-flops now. I can now like toggle lights like with like a light switch. And like what I'm doing here is like, in here I'm searching for a block called toggle and I'm trying to activate it. So when I like toggle this ACB, it also toggles this one. And then toggle defaults to off because I have this one turning toggle off by setting it, disabling it, but with a lower priority. So yeah, there's a lot you can do, and this is quite the rabbit hole that I went down last night. Obviously, like, you can, like, for example, name the ACB this and ACB, or I can shift N it and say I don't want it to have a name. It'll show up in here. So this one's automated control block toggle, this one doesn't have a name because I just removed it. But both of these contain A in the value, and what I'm doing is I'm searching for A. In addition, I can have these set like I'm having these set the extension if it detects the object in front. So when I press toggle, it enables those ACBs, and then when the block passes through here, it turns off. And then this one, it's the same setup that I have with this ACB and the NOT gate, and it's just for this light. So if I just kind of went to this and just said, let's not send a signal anymore, now the NOT is true and we're toggling the light. And a similar thing I can do, like a timing thing, using some of the new features. And this is a better ACB for this. We now have a min action interval, which means that there is a certain amount of time that passes before the ACB actually is allowed to trigger again. In addition, we can also define a delay, so you could have things fire off in sequence. It now queues it, so if you have the condition true, you have the same thing trigger the condition again, it's going to send another action. And it'll have the same delay, and it'll queue it up for, I guess, presumably an infinite amount. So about 40 per second, since physics ticks are like 40 times a second. So yeah, so like doing this, I was able to create a timer that has a long duty cycle. And that's the exact same mechanism where it's like it's checking to see if this light can be turned on, and then this one just is like the default setting with a lower priority. So yeah, other things kind of want to point out. I may as well just let's just remove this because this also demonstrates the same thing. Automated control blocks can have actions slaved to them. So this one, for example, is checking for this condition, but it has no action. And this one, it has an action but no condition. This ACB is going to activate if both of the conditions are true, and it'll perform both of the actions. That's sort of a cool thing to note. Another thing to note, it's slightly distracting. We now have a new mode. This is going to adjust this. We can like adjust our altitude based on the height of waves. So like in stormy weather, we could like stabilize a hydrofoil more easily. This is welcome. And then in addition to all that, let's just go through all of these. We can, for example, have new settings. So we could, for example, say in a certain time of day, or within a resource zone, or if we've been hit by a laser. Or we could say altitude over CR terrain, because they added that. We could also like have a convenient method for like if we have a propulsion command, like we can like have it trigger based on whether we're receiving inputs from an AI or not. Another cool thing is, while in enemy we also have missiles and torpedoes, and it can be either or. And the same thing here as enemy, except this is perhaps the most powerful thing. We can actually like detect a specific target and use that in our ACB logic. This means the entire workaround I had for the phase nuke using Lua could probably be completely removed now, because we can get specific targeting information and relay that to ACBs. You have no idea how happy this makes me. Also, I may as well mention, it's a little out of order, but ACBs don't care about their orientation, so you can have them facing each other or like looking like they don't connect and they'll work just fine. Also, ACBs have a condition that I didn't really show. It's like we have multiple additional things. You may as well go through this yourself because there have been like a few things added. There's also like, for crying out loud, like LAMS you can set the color, but that doesn't actually work. But it's like also like with shields actually being able to set like the color. That's kind of an interesting thought. So you could, for example, set the drive factor based on distance. And since you can get like bearing, you could also, and like use names, you could also have shields be directional. So like if your like target is a certain direction, you could just have those shields on and on max strength all the time. And I might actually try that in a experimental design sometime. But having like overall protection is probably better in my opinion. But yeah, as you can like see in here, like we have like lots of new settings. The only one I really want to point out, I think, which, oh, you could turn those on and off. Where are you? I can't seem to ACBs, which is under AI, not control, so keep that in mind. You can tell them to execute, so it could execute an ACB, and yeah, all it does is tell them to execute. But I'm honestly not completely certain how it's supposed to work, because it's like, it's weird. So what I did was I probably just messed up all the settings, since I have a lot of random ACBs that do nothing but mess with settings that I didn't actually want to mess with. Either way, that's done with this. Time to go over the new tools. So we have a few new debug tools. We have EMP, Health and AC. We also have a block naming and copy paste tool. They're kind of redundant, but for example, I could, copy paste this by right clicking you. Let's right click you, and I can like left click into here. We have a renamer, same thing, right click, I can change the name. And here also, I can, for example, control CU and control V. I think this might have been like the default behavior for quite some time, but I didn't know it was like this. So I guess I was being silly not knowing how this worked. Also, Shift N will allow you to change the name. So now this automated control block has a name. Of course, it's probably disabled because it contains an A, and the T flip-flop here is disabling things with an A in it. So if I like try to like enable it, it's going to repeatedly disable. Some points it stays on longer. If I like turn the T flip-flop off, it should actually allow me to enable it again. So that's sort of like an example of how you could set it up. Also, like before I go off and like explain like that bit in some more detail, we now can see the AC of a block based on the actual like stacked AC. So as you can see, we can actually like see how resistant this armor is from various angles. That is super helpful. And yeah, now we just want to go and demonstrate something. Using ACBs and the naming conventions, I'm actually able to easily, as well as like the priorities, I no longer have to worry about the orientation and location of the various things. So it means that I can have a floating platform that navigates just by being a floating platform. I also have a hover bike somewhere. Where did I leave it? Somewhere. I left the hover bike. Where's my hover bike? It's right here. Let's go to our hover bike, and yes, I have like the same thing here. I can control it. I can like tilt it for more precise movement. So like getting up to like about 10 meters a second. It's a little bouncy because I have it tuned up pretty high. And like obviously I can like tilt as much as I'd like. So I can like dodge things left and right easily. And of course I have the regular controls. And using these ACB updates, I actually was able to get pretty like safe control systems. So I could like do something like this and like be able to adjust course kind of like this. And obviously, yeah, it's pretty cool. And if I press TG and if I hold G, it actually, like, it'll only like reverse if I'm not moving too quickly forward. So I'm going like about, let's go like max speed. Now I'm holding G. It's not actually going to pitch back until it's slowed down enough that it's not going to launch. So yeah, and this is also so like if I am holding J, it's not actually going to do anything until it's slowed down enough. Because otherwise it would fly off and go in loop-de-loops despite me having balanced these thrusters. Either way, it's a hover bike and it does hover bike things, and I'm going to be using it in the campaign, I think. And to do some hover bike things and maybe capture vehicles. So yeah. Anyway, I think maybe that is all that there is. Like, wait a second. I feel like something is just staring me right in the face. I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like it's important. What is it? Maybe I can, no. Graphics options. They have updated this game. And yeah, this whole time I was kind of debating you guys. I don't know, I just thought it would be funny if I didn't acknowledge the massive, like, glaring like changes to the graphics. Glaring's not a good word though. Enable bloom, then it is. But regardless, this is how the game used to look. Let me just change that back. I don't know if I can go back. It's too ugly, the original graphics, because by comparison, the water looks like water. And look, shiny. This is super shiny. I mean, you notice with the hoverbike, it's like got a really glossy finish to it. Yes. And it also has, yeah, as you can see, that's kind of really basic, because I don't have like I don't have the reflection probe. Reflection probe is nice because it means like it'll reflect itself, but it's relative to the camera, so if I like getting close to like an object, it like affects the entire shading and changes the way that the color looks. Like it's looking darker. And like as I move around, based on like how much of the screen is being taken up by things, it's going to affect it. But it does mean like reflective surfaces actually reflect surfaces. That shiny objects actually do that. I'm going to turn that off since it's actually distracting since I make these larger designs. We also have ambient occlusion, which really just exists to make sure that like dark areas are actually dark. We have color post-process, which I should back out a little. So if I go here, it looks a lot more gray and dull. If I go back into my options and re-enable this, suddenly it's a lot more colorful and it just looks richer to me. We also have extra shadow creators. I could show you what this does. It's actually a little unfortunate that it's like this, but light fittings will cast shadows on themselves. But it's pretty cool. I'll go and turn that off. If they actually like fix that, I would have that setting on too. In addition, like we have some additional settings, like let's say we want planar reflections in the water. This is like slower, but it provides a lot more detailed looking reflections. As you can see, like no matter the direction, it's just really detailed and providing me like with a really good outline. But as you can tell, this probably will lag things out. I'm actually going to leave this on because it looks nice, but I get like a distinct feeling that there. Also, like, let me see if I can find some land. Okay, I see it now. Let's just cut in air throttles, and I'm just going to come here with my camera. As you can see here, if I can like come in closer, and yeah, the water's even reflecting the islands. Okay, that's kind of cool. But there's like sea foam on the shore. Like this is something you can enable and disable as well. And I just kind of wanted to come here so that you can actually like see the difference. So render shore foam off and off versus on. That actually looks really good. It kind of breaks up where the water meets and makes it not look like it's a thing. As you can see, yeah, we have all these settings. I'm super happy about it. I can't really think of too many other changes. Sound and everything is pretty basic. Like we could increase the wave factor dramatically if we wanted. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I believe like you can also like change the particle factor. I set it to like 0.1 because that's just the best setting for me, I think. I also set it so that it doesn't change the frame rate. It doesn't scale the game time. So like the minimum FPS is actually 20 hertz, but it's going into degraded mode when it hits 20 anyway. It was going to maintain at least 20. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. I'm quite like satisfied with it, with these changes. And I hope you guys like it too. I'm probably going to see you in the campaign.